Oh, did you hear that?
Yeah. It started doing that to me now when I start doing my podcast as well.
Right.
I was like, what's going on there?
Well, Bill's at it already. Welcome to the Points Performance Podcast. This is Tom Blake. This week I'm joined by my friend Alex Lenkowski, who is a strength and conditioning coach. He's been on, is this third time now, mate?
Yeah, third
time guest. And we're going to get into a couple of subjects at the minute. Pretty clickbaity stuff, including masturbation, which everyone's experienced, transgender athletes, and a couple of other health choices that are in the public eye at the minute. Right, mate. Like we've chatted a little bit about this, but this is something I really wanted to talk about on the podcast because everybody's got a different opinion on this, and it's quite an emotional thing to talk about. But transgender athletes in sport, so that's like come about quite a bit this year, and the best example I can use is Laurel Hubbard, who is, let me get my information up about her. She is a New Zealand Olympic weightlifter in the super heavyweight category, 90 plus. She's 42 years old. She transitioned to a female in her mid-30s. So she spent, like, let's just say 7 years as the fairer gender, the fairer sex.
Can you say that? Is that going to offend? That's probably going to offend someone.
Don't worry, only 7 people listen to this. It's fine. Anyway, if they're offended, that's on them. And she's qualified for the Olympics. She's got an Olympic spot. She didn't have to go through all the same type of competitions as you usually do because of the old lockdowns and all that sort of stuff. She spent 35 years as a biological male. And
I mean, imagine if a female athlete took steroids for 35 years. Let's just reverse the question. What would you do? A female athlete takes steroids for 35 years, accepts that they're not going to have a career in the sport because they'd be banned.
Yeah.
And then, bang, a few years later, testosterone levels drop, facial hair falls off, and all of a sudden, you're allowed to compete. You've still got that 35 years worth of bone development, increasing peak bone mass, muscle strength. Do you know what? There's so many advantages that you can gain just from that. And all of a sudden you decide that you're going to be a female. I mean, what was wrong after 35 years? Is she going to say that she's always felt like that? Or
yeah, and that's great. Like, you know, if she feels that she wants to live life as a woman, great, good for her. Like, if she feels better and she's happier and her life's more fulfilled, like, you know, she feels great doing it, great, I'm all for it. However, our question that we're going to look at today is it fair? Is it fair play? And how does it affect sport?
Well, I've got some numbers here for you.
I've got some numbers. I'm excited to hear numbers.
Numbers and stats are always good, aren't they? So this is based off transgender MMA athletes, right? This is from Science for Sport. And so testosterone, males have 15 times more than women. You could argue that across general population, that's now declining. But if we're talking elite sport, where you've got the freaks of the freaks involved.
You live a healthy lifestyle. You live an optimal lifestyle, yeah.
Who live a healthy lifestyle, who fight for a profession. Let's not dress it up any other way. They are professional fighters. They will kick the shit out of you.
Their goal is to get their body in the best condition possible to twat you.
Yeah, purpose built for fucking you up. Then we're looking at striking power. Females produce 162% less power. All right, that, like, not to be sniffed at. There are a lot of strong women out there. Or sort of say strong females. I don't know how we can use terminology without offending anybody these days. But females produce 100.
Let's just say it like this: biological male, biological female. Okay, so Laurel, for example, Laurel Hubbard is a biological male. Okay. Like the emotional, the choice that they've made or whatever it is, what level. I'm not demeaning it when I say emotional, by the way. I mean, like the lifestyle change that they've made is a lifestyle change. Like, you know, they feel like they're a woman. However, still a biological male.
Yeah. I mean, like all power to you for making the decision. But in this conversation, in this context, it's where it becomes unbalancing and unfair for female athletes.
Yeah.
That's my personal issue with it. Like, I think if you want to transition, if you want to change sex, if you want to, or if you decide that you feel like a woman or a man or whatever you want to do, go and do it. That's fine, because you don't have an impact on me. But if you start impacting and getting involved in professional sport, cleaning up medals, taking away funding from other athletes who are maybe competing for the same country, you know, that's their livelihood as well. And you could argue it's simply just not a fair categorization. And if you look at that's going to be another conversation to have as part of this. Like, how do you then categorize sport? Because I mean, we've spoken on my podcast about how sport should be, everyone should be able to do it, everyone should be involved. So it's how do you keep it fair? How do you decide the right way to go?
Everyone should have an equal opportunity to compete, and then based on their genetics, how hard they work, what dedication they put in, and how they perform, that should be the end result. Laurel Hubbard was, I think he had the total record for New Zealand. They weren't outstanding numbers. They weren't insane numbers. Like, I think it was like for someone that size, like a 130 snatch and a 160 clean and jerk as a super heavyweight is pretty low. Not amazing numbers, but obviously if they walked into your gym, they'd be like, that he's a pretty sick weightlifter. But now as a female, he's taken the Olympic spot. She's taken the Olympic spot from all the New Zealand athletes, whoever, you know, who was competing in the super heavyweight division, going for a spot, competing at the Olympic Games is one of the highest, apart from obviously medaling, is one of the biggest goals that you've got that out there, I'm sure, as an Olympic. Like, it's the dream, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it is immediately taken away. Like, so bog standard average male weightlifter transitions to a female and then becomes someone who's going to the Olympics.
Yeah. That
was, you know, if it was us, that's incredibly unfair. It's like, think about it this way. Think about it. You're on the under 11s American football team, Alex, because you're an American footballer, right? And then someone from year 11 who's 16, who's had all that development, all that the puberty, the development, the experience, the emotional development, goes, I'm taking your spot off the team, mate.
Well, do you know what? I think this comes into, so I've got loads more stats and loads more numbers on the differences, but I just thinking back to, you know, Megan Rapinoe, who's talking about female footballers should be paid equivalent to male footballers because it's the same job. Well, the US women's national team got beat like 5-0 or something like that by a Dallas under 15s team. So, I mean, it's if you think, well, is it the same job? No, it's not the same job. You're not competing against men. So I think what we're actually talking about now is it could open up, if you're being very cynical, a real large window for exploitation. You could have a load of incredibly average male athletes that, I mean, it's a pretty extreme length to go to for your career, but that then transition to be paid thousands and thousands of pounds a week to play in female sport.
Yeah.
You know, or like to go medal, and it's just the wrong way to go, I think. And I think, you know,
it's unfair because they started and have spent most of their life as a male, like you said. And if you just go off hormones, like 15 times more testosterone production for all those years. And yeah, all right, this dude's been on hormone replacement or whatever inhibitors for the past 6 years or whatever it is. And I think all he has to show is that his testosterone's below a certain level consistently. Yeah. I'm not being funny, mate, but let's just put it really plainly. I used to fight. I used to do MMA. I trained for like 4 or 5 years. Had a couple of fights. I'm 91 192 kilograms today, right? So let's put me on the level of like national circuit level, right? Or yeah, so chicks who just fight in the UK. Put me on hormone inhibitors for 6 months, and then put me in the cage with a bird, right? And how's it gonna go? Yeah, I'm wider. I've got stronger hips. I've got wider hips, wider shoulders, stronger bones. I'm naturally more aggressive. I am bigger. I am stronger. Like put that in any sport. And like you just given the example of those lads, those 15-year-old lads beat the US national women's soccer team. So those chicks who go to the Olympics and play soccer for America, and these lads probably got spanked last week by the fucking Texas Cowboy Rangers or whatever they're called. Do you know what I mean? Like,
well, I think if the question is, should trans athletes be allowed to compete in female sport, I think the answer has to be no, because if you do that, you simply open up the window for obliterating female sport.
Yeah, and I'd love what would be great and what would be fairer. And I think I don't think this would appeal to a lot of athletes who would want a fair game, is their own league.
Yeah,
their own league. I'd love to see that. And if it was good and it was entertaining, then I'd watch it. And my opinion would be that it would be more entertaining than a women's league, or it would, you'd have heavier lifts, you'd have faster sprint times, you'd have, more competitive games, arguably, because as we've seen from these examples of Laurel Hubbard, you can lift a lot more than everyone else from New Zealand who's over 90 kilograms and identifies as a woman. And the female USA team, they're better. They are better.
Yeah.
Can we go on the side of things now? Because we've smashed the facts. I think that it's quite obvious.
Oh, well, I mean,
who's faster?
There's even more, like reactive strength, 33% lower in female athletes. Cardiovascular, females pump 33% less blood per heartbeat. Upper body strength, 44% greater in males. Bone density, 10% greater in males.
Yeah,
it's so one-sided. So, mate, like you say,
and we're not demeaning women. We both have strong women in our lives. Like my wife, mate. We got 108. We got like over 100 men at our gym, for example, and she outlifts nearly all of them, apart from the ones who train pretty hard. She like overhead squatted 90 kilograms a week. Like I literally know like 3 or 4 men in the gym who can do that. Like, so we're not saying that women aren't strong as fuck, but she's really strong for a woman. She's really strong for a woman, but all the lads all the guys who do, lads who are her equivalent as a CrossFitter, as a lad, are overhead squatting 120, 130, 140, 150.
It's what we're saying. Like, I mean, elite sport isn't your average day-to-day human. Like, you are literally looking at the freaks of the freaks. And if you're doing it professionally, you are 0.1% of the 1%, like right at the top of the pyramid. And the problem is, when you get to that point, the extremes and the differences, which is what those numbers are that I've read out there, they're huge. I mean, again, we're talking about fighting. Put Brock Lesnar in the ring with anybody. What's going to happen?
If he identifies and he's called Brianna Lesnar, takes hormones for a couple of months, he's going to smash. His fists are bigger than me head. Do you know what I mean? He's huge.
I mean, I think Brock Lesnar's probably slightly over 15 times the testosterone level.
Yeah, on and off. More than that. So what do we say to those people who would argue that, okay, but Laurel feels like she's a woman, so she should be able to compete as a woman?
I think
these statistics.
I think I had a conversation with someone on this, and I mentioned, should she be allowed to compete in female sports simply because she feels like a woman, or it's her interpretation of what's going on kind of in her brain? And I got told off for being disparaging and bigoted, in my view,
Right. So basically, they didn't give you an argument. They tried to discredit you in the conversation.
Absolutely. So my views are old-fashioned, and it's not simply down to the way they feel. And I read into it a little bit further, and I think there are arguably some possible differences in terms of brain structure, but quite what it is, nobody really knows. So how do you pin it down? And I think the only way that you can actually make it fair, and I think the problem that world sport is having in terms of this battle with whether you want to go trans athletes or simply just the whole woke community, is how do you go and classify sport? How do you decide what's male, what's female? Like the IOC have governing body rules on your testosterone levels, and they have to be at a certain number for 6 months before you're allowed to compete. And I think they've recently dropped it even further for those trans athletes or for female athletes. They have to be at an even lower threshold than previously. So even that's changing at the moment. So they don't know. They don't have all the answers. I think you look at different sports. I think World Rugby actually ban that whole situation. They say that trans athletes are not allowed to compete in female rugby sports. Although I think France, the governing body in France, they changed their rules to allow that to happen, to allow those women to compete. So how do you classify it? How do you classify the sport? I think we just go off. Do you go battle of the sexes? But again, that requires you to come out and risk being offensive. But that's, I mean, like I listen to a lot of Jordan Peterson and what he speaks about, and to speak the truth is to risk being offensive. Like, you are going to upset people, but it's simply the way that the world is to help keep sport fair.
Yeah, because we've got these. You've mentioned the woke agenda, and it's it's exhausting, really, isn't it? Because they just keep making rules up, and it's so tiring, really, because it's just all a load of shit. It's all a load of bullshit, like, and it's hard to keep up with. And I always, as a coach, I always had it in me where I have to say how I really feel and what I really see. I have to say it how it is. I'm like a straight shooter, if that's what you want to call it, and if there's an athlete in class who's not moving optimally, I will address it. I'll say it out loud. I'll never walk away and just be like, oh, that's the best he can do. Like, if there's something that needs to be said, I will say it. And I've offended a lot of people with a lot of the things I've said. After a conversation, I usually bring people around to my way of thinking, because whatever I say, it's never emotional. It's fact. It's the truth. It's our truth. It's a truth that I believe in because of its accuracy. It's not emotional. It's not based on a feeling. It's not based off because I'm going to hurt someone else. It's based in logic, sound logic.
That can be measured.
Big, strong person who's got different genitals, right? And has enjoyed bone density, strength, reactive strength, testosterone to massive levels for 35 years, then decides he doesn't want to play in this league anymore and he wants to go on easy mode. No, it's not right. It's not fair. I wouldn't let the 16-year-olds play with the 10-year-olds. It's not fair. Of any gender, it's not fair. It's not right. It will not create a good outcome. The 10-year-olds will get disheartened. The 16-year-olds it'll be too easy for them. It's not fair. Yeah. So if you had a sports academy and that's what you were doing, you wouldn't put them together because it's just pointless. It's just a waste of time and it's negative and it doesn't make anyone better.
I mean, I think the whole purpose behind this conversation is to help kind of maintain female sport and allow females to compete and allow them the space and the opportunity to be the best female. Like, I don't know. I mean, I love watching
women's sport. Like when CrossFit Games comes around and the semi-finals on this weekend. Like, I love watching it. It has been more exciting than the lads side for the past few years because Matt Fraser's just bummed everyone. Like, and you know,
So
it's a bit more interesting.
this was going to be my question for you. Like, I mean, whenever I've watched sort of like the CrossFit Games or games events and things like that, and you see the females competing, like it's always it's very similar to watching the males compete bar Matt Fraser. Like it's tight, it's close. Like you don't necessarily know who's going to go in and win any particular event, so to speak. But if you took, how would it weigh up in your mind if you took one of those males and put them, let's say they transition, and then put them into a female competition?
Let me just give you some examples then. So the average snatch at the CrossFit Games, if you've got the top 40 or 6 to 60 athletes at the CrossFit Games, right? The average snatch for a man is 125 kilograms, right? The average chick snatch, I don't mean chick derogatory, I fucking love chicks. I love women. The average snatch is in between around 80, 85 kilograms, right? That's a huge difference. If we're talking freedom units, that's nearly 100 units, 100 pounds.
An extra 50% in it.
Yeah. The back squat, the 1RM back squat. I think Tia back squatted 160 or 150 maybe, right? And then you've got Matt Fraser back squatting over 200 kilograms. Yeah. Tia's the best chick, the best lady, the best chick. Matt's the best dude. So I'll use those two as examples. And they're both equally dominant. Matt, just 1 year more dominant than Tia has been. So we just use those strength numbers as examples because they're really basic. Look at it. Like, and you look at what Tia's done as a lady. She's I think she won the Commonwealth, or she won or came second in the Commonwealth Games in Olympic weightlifting.
Yeah.
Matt Fraser was a very average national weightlifter. A very, very average national weightlifter. Great numbers, great athlete, but nothing special as far as weightlifters go in his weight category. I think he was a 77 at the time when he was up to the age of 18 or 19 before he got injured and stopped lifting full time. So, but he's still 100 pounds ahead in these lifts. So if you look at it, if I became, and let's face it, with this hairdo, I could make a start. If I chinned it off and became a female, yeah, my best back squat's 190. You know what I mean? So even though I'm not elite CrossFit Games athlete,
you're at the top.
I'm winning.
Are you considering
you know what I mean? I'm ahead, and I might not win the workouts. Do you know what I mean? Like but when the weights come into it, like the weight differences. So in CrossFit, if a guy's using 60 kilograms, a lady's using 40 kilograms. Yeah. So it changes again. Give me a 40 kilogram bar instead of a 60 kilogram bar. Do you know what I mean? It's going to be way easier for me. And all the other things change as well. So like if you've got like a rowing workout, usually a girl will do 2/3 of the calories that a male will do. So if we're in a workout with rowing, it's usually 30 calories, but I'm on it and I do 20 calories. Like it's going to be way easier. It's like look at the girls' rowing times as well. They did a 1K row at the CrossFit Games. The lads were doing it under 3 minutes. Like my best row is 1K row is under 3 minutes. The girls have got like 30 odd seconds on top of that at least. Like it's the difference is so obvious, and it's so obvious in all sports and situations. You could argue there are some skill sports, like I don't fucking know, like
darts.
Shooting,
Darts arguably a pub game, but there is, female darts player competing on the male circuit. And I think this is another issue as well. Like there are definitely some sports where you could merge the two and say, look, your sex is irrelevant, go and compete with male athletes.
Not being funny, but if there was some chick, right, who walked into Phil the Power Taylor's pub and smashed him, she'd be on Sky Sports in that tournament.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Like, or something. Like, because there's no opportunity to elbow Phil the Power Taylor in the face. There's no opportunity to slam into him sprinting at full body, at full speed. Yeah, there's nothing like that. They're not lifting weights against each other. They're not wrestling. They're not trying to choke each other out. They're not even running a ball around each other. They're not even sprinting in the same direction. It's so obvious, mate. And
I think
this is just it's like a division tactic, and we've already had the emasculation of man. We've already had all this toxic masculinity bullshit, which has stopped men from being men. Now we've got the attack of the female, and I believe that it's to discredit and make women feel a bit shitter, because the best women won't win. Serena Williams got beat by the 153rd male in the world in tennis. Look at the difference. 153rd. He's probably still got a job. He probably still coaches. Whereas Serena Williams is a multi-millionaire. Do you know what I mean? She's got a panic room that she hides from USADA in. Like,
multiple Grand Slam wins.
Oh, mate, she's won everything, and she's mint. She's amazing. I love Serena Williams. I love how amazing of an athlete she is, and she could do any sport as a woman in a woman's division. But she got beat by the 153rd dude who fucking still probably coaches kids at his club at the weekend or whatever it is.
I think that's the difference, isn't it? It's, as soon as you bring in the speed, power aspect, strength aspect of sport, physicality wise, I don't think you can even argue that. You can't argue that there are differences.
Mate. Look at tennis, like the serve. Greg Radetzky back in the day, Andy Roddick banging out 149 mile an hour serves at Wimbledon. The chick 93, amazing, but nowhere near.
That's not even a male second serve.
No,
at a professional level.
No, it's not. Oh,
I think hopefully that clears up any debate around should trans athletes be allowed to compete.
I'd love to hear some counter arguments. If anyone wants to message in, Tom at CrossFit3D.com, or find me on Stargup. Anywhere, find me, message me, tell me what you think. I'd love to know. And there are some studies out about testosterone and women who've had testosterone for 6 months, men who've had estrogen for 6 months. It's a drop in the ocean. It's just nowhere near.
I think actually on another one that could be exempt, where males can compete with females equivalently, ultra endurance running. I think that's another one where you could have like a cross population.
I think there was a 200. I think it's a 200-mile ultra, or the biggest. I can't remember what it's called. It's called Big Bob or something like that. And a woman won it, and she won it by a marathon. Yeah. And she was on Joe Rogan last year, or the year before.
Yeah, I think that's another great example of females can compete with males. It's not every arena. There are some arenas which it is seriously unbalanced. Like if you were talking CrossFit, rugby, football, American football, ice hockey, fuck me, dangerous.
Mate, and when you look at it, it's common sense.
Yeah.
You know that. Like a girl fighting a boy in the playground, that needs to stop right now. A 15-year-old lad fighting a 15-year-old girl in the playground, that needs to stop. There's such a difference.
Yeah.
But we know that. And if you don't think that, then there's some good information out there for you to look through and some great examples of it. Cool. Yeah. It'd be great to get to talk to a transgender athlete and see how they feel. But I don't actually think there are that many. And I tell you what, there aren't any of women transitioning to a men's sport.
Well, I don't think you'll ever see it.
You won't.
I don't see how you could ever see it
at all.
In terms of those physical sports that we have talked about, it's only going to be beneficial one way, and that is male to female. Simple as that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, speaking of males lately, they are becoming less male. I talked about this with Tim Cocker the other week.
Yeah.
But I found this statistic which blew my mind. I don't think I mentioned this on there, but there's been a 59% reduction in sperm count in the modern man over the last 50 years. 59%. 59% of your load down. Hey, Alex, you've got a fucking 2 litre diesel. You got a 2 litre diesel engine, Alex. and now it's a fucking maths. Do you know what I mean? Now it's
Imagine if that was your bank account.
80. Oh God! Now you've got a 0.8 liter. Yeah, it is. Well, it's change one of those letters, and you're right. That's insane. And you've got to look at like what's happening, and we spoke a little bit about this before we press record, but people's lifestyles is a huge contributor to this, and how we live now is so different. It's insane how we live now. And what we accept as normal. Let's do it.
I'm going to go through some of it. So, like I said to you before we came on, Paleolithic times, if you survived childbirth, which was arguably, incredibly risky and highly fraught with disaster and very high death rate, I think it was like 40% didn't make it. You could argue that was natural selection immediately. Like if you weren't strong enough, you would not make it and it was probably a very efficient way for us to actually live, really, when you consider the amount of resources it would actually take to raise a child and bring them into adulthood. That's an expensive process. Like our brains, our whole development, it's like 18 years plus worth of energy, time, effort, nurturing. But anyway, if you did make it through that, you would live to the age of about 60 to 80 years old on average. So as long as you survive childbirth, 60 to 80 is kind of the window where you will die by what was some form of transmissible disease, whether it's polio, TB, the flu, or a common cold, or kind of that kind of thing would quite frequently be the thing that killed us.
Yeah.
Fast forward through to farming times, the average life expectancy there, 40 to 50 years old. So that's where we started to build communities, live off the land, live off one particular single plot, eating the same food. The main reason for death and disease there is just simply down to malnutrition. Eating the same soft, palatable foods again and again, rather than hunter-gathering, living off the land, eating different types of animals, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, like things that are contaminated with different soils. Like we're simply stuck to the same thing and the same fertilizers again and again, which reduces our body's response to different stresses, which ultimately that's what's killing us now. Our inability to adapt and evolve to handle different stresses. And fast forwarding on from the farming period, going into the industrial era, our life expectancy now is arguably better than it ever has been. It's 70 to 80 years old on average. I think we spoke about this with COVID kicking off, where there was
the average life expectancy for a female in the UK is 82 and males 84. No, other way around. Females 84, males 82.
Yeah. So, arguably the best time to ever be alive. However, the only significant difference from that farming period to the industrial period now is the intervention of medicine and modern day medicine. Like, I think if we were to take that away, those numbers that we're seeing in terms of life expectancy and arguably life quality would be equivalent to or worse than farming era. So we would be living to about 40 or 50 years old before getting wiped out by what is now termed as mismatched diseases, which is actually diseases that we are responsible for creating ourselves. We are creating our own problems, whereby we're dying from heart disease, cancers. We're essentially fast forwarding our biological processes, again, down to poor nourishment, poor nutrition.
So instead of lack of food, now we had a lack of food. Now we've got a surplus of it, and it's so easy. You can walk in Tesco with £3 and come out with 6,000 calories in shit.
Yeah,
it's easy to get. It's easy access. There's no stress involved. Life expectancy, I think it's 78 for males, 81 for females.
Yeah,
the 82
so around that
were with COVID, which is older than the average age of death.
Just looking at the numbers here as well, like most of us will die from a disease of our own making, whether it is like cancer, or we'll suffer with depression, Alzheimer's, we'll have cavities in our teeth, low back pain. They're all examples of mismatched diseases. And 33% of us will die from coronary heart disease. That's a fact. 25% of us will die from cancer. That's a fact. So that's 58% of us that are dead already from simply 2 mismatched diseases from our own creating.
And when you say from your own creation, you mean
on.
that people have made lifestyle choices that have directly influenced that outcome.
Yeah. So that's 58% of us gone. Imagine like 1 in 2. More, it's more than that. It's more than 1 in, go into the gym later on.
Yeah.
And if that was let's just say that's
it's nearly 6 out of 10 people, isn't it? It's like
representation of the average population. Stand there. If you've got a class of 30 of them, go, right, you 18, stand over there, you're all dead. That's essentially what we're doing. I mean, obviously in gym populations, it's probably not, it won't be as accurate.
Because most of the people at our gym live a healthier lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly.
This is where we're going with this, by the way, if you didn't already know.
So, I mean, the numbers on it are absolutely mad. So that's 58%. The estimation is that around 70% are going to be down to mismatch diseases, possibly more. So every year in the United States, and I told you this stat before we came on, every year in the United States, around $2.5 trillion are spent on some form of healthcare, whether it's surgeries, operations, over-the-counter products, simply trying to maintain the body and maintain a level of homeostasis because we're unable to cope with everyday demands of stress. And numbers included in that are like orthotics and things like, because flat feet are a problem of our own making as well. So let's take away 70% or keep 70% of that number, that you're still left with $1.75 trillion. And what could you do with that? What could you do with that money? You could cure world hunger immediately. Gone. You could
do that with the track and trace money.
You could launch God knows how many missions to Mars. You could do so many things with 1.75, and that's being spaffed away every single year. And just to put it into context for the people that are listening, if you've got $1.75 trillion in your bank account, right? If you spent $1 million per day, it would take you 2,800 years to burn through 1 trillion, and you've still got 750 billion left. And that's 2,800 years. If you spent $1 million every hour of the day, it'd take you 411 years to simply get through just $1 trillion. So the numbers are just
like they're really hard to get your head around. It's hard to understand that amount of money. Like, it is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And these are all like this stuff though that people are dying from. It's just preventable disease. Like you could literally turn it around yourself. You could start and turn it around yourself. You could start walking. You could start eating whole foods. You could stop eating shit. You could stop eating Mackies or just stop eating it as much. It's so easy. It's so easy, but there's just a severe lack of education. There's a severe lack of societal pressure for this to be important. There's like, nobody cares. It's accepted that being fat is okay. It's accepted that being overweight and weak is okay.
So again, this comes down to like trying to look forward by looking back, essentially. Like the way that we have evolved is we've evolved to be barefoot. We've evolved to be slightly fat. And I say slightly fat, put it into perspective. Chimps are generally around 5 to 6%. Humans are designed to be around 10 to 20%. What we're seeing is far more extreme than that.
And I'm not saying everyone should be walking around looking like Men's Health cover. I just mean that you know what I mean. There's a level, and when you get to a certain body composition, you know that you are rolling the dice every year with inviting in one of these diseases or these mismatched diseases that we've discussed. Some things come in earlier, harder, and much more painfully than it would if you took some control over your biology.
Yeah, we're essentially speeding up our biological processes by not eliminating cancerous cells, which, by the way, is done while we sleep. Like losing out on sleep ultimately switches off.
Well, there's another thing, isn't
reduces cancer fighting cells by 70%. We're evolved to breathe through our noses. We don't do that because that's a trade-off between us being able to speak. Well, you still need to be mindful and conscious of the way you breathe. I spend a lot of time on that in terms of looking at the other impact that has in terms of mindset and, you know, the way you sleep, the quality of sleep, the quality of exercise.
You see people in life who are mouth breathers, and what do you associate those people with? Being a bit dumb. Do you know what I mean? Close your mouth and breathe through your nose.
Exactly that.
And we're not, like, I hate having to say this, but we're not demonizing people who don't look after themselves.
So just let me ask you another question. If you took away your meat and protein, your meat, your protein, and your vegetables, how much of your food would you actually have to work to chew? Do you reckon? Like, what else do you eat other than that? Like, your carbohydrates are generally going to come from soft
yeah, I mean, foods. I wouldn't like to suck a potato, but I know what you mean. Yeah.
So, like, most of your carbohydrate sources, or most of our carbohydrate sources these days, are in the forms of fast, quick-acting sugars and, you know, starch, bread, soft pasta.
Yeah.
Really soft foods. And if you don't eat crunchy, chewy foods, you don't develop your jaw. If you don't develop your jaw, you inhibit your breathing. Again, that has a knock-on effect, but you're automatically having an even more negative impact by neglecting not just not harmful foods, but you're not eating positive impacting foods. You're actually going out your way to eat shit and screw yourself up. And the only reason that I don't think we do anything about it is because it doesn't have an immediate impact.
It doesn't have an immediate impact. It's hard to see people find it difficult to see the benefits. It's also difficult to get. It's not as hyper palatable as the fast food. It doesn't taste as good. It's too easy to get. Mackey's, remember mate, in lockdown, Mackey's was 50% off. The queues were a joke. The queues were unreal. Not that I was ever in one. I just drove past. But it's just so easy to live this lifestyle. And like we said, imagine if they used the £300 million used to push to remind people that there's a pandemic, as to remind people that they should be looking after themselves. You'd hope that we're be in a much better position.
Yeah.
In terms of health.
What was I going to say then? I don't know where it's gone. Okay. Gone. Oh no, that was it. So the gut-brain axis. So gut-brain axis. So looked at a study. I think there's been multiple done. One from Harvard, and they've noticed that if you eat junk food, like I think most people will have seen the who was the guy who did Super Size Me?
Oh yeah, I remember.
Where he ate McDonald's for a month, right? Yeah. So eating junk food for 7 days, 1 week, can have a physiological adaptation in your brain. 7 days, and it starts to cause physiological changes in your brain where we automatically become more pleasure-seeking in terms of food. And then that has a knock-on effect to various other things. And I think you've possibly spoken about these on other podcasts as well, where we start to engage in other activities that are, I would argue, very poor for our self-esteem. You know, if you're busy doing it yourself all the time and you're not actually interacting with a female or someone of the opposite sex, or well, the same sex for some people, you know, you're losing out on a lot. Like that's a whole part of human nature.
I mean, like, you know, how are you gonna, the normal like genetic things we have, how are you going to pass on your DNA? How are you going to pass on your line? How are you going to carry on your line? How are you going to, you know, you're not bothered about attracting a female, which like, then you're like, well, I don't need to be in shape. I don't need to be attractive. I don't have to look after myself.
I think what you're talking about there is relegating yourself to subhuman, because that's what chimps do, isn't it? They sit around and wank all day and that's it.
In captivity, in isolation.
Yeah.
Which is what everyone's been in for a year, just in wank palace, just at home. banging them out, and they've literally like got the favorite porn stars and watched their entire back catalogue of getting railed. And then, you know, there's just only ever an increasing sort of like need for something more extreme, a longer video, a dirtier video, like something that's even more in stimulating, like you talked about the pleasure factor in food, in ever increasing pleasure, like seeking. So I need a dirty video. I need 7 dudes going in on a, like whatever it is. But then you see a bird, like your girlfriend or your wife comes home after obliterating all your bodily fluids for the past 3 hours, and then you're like, I'm just not asked about shagging her. I'm not asked about going after her. Like even if she tries it on with you, which she won't, because you'll just look and feel like a mess and be, you know, you just be the definition of beta male at that point. You just have nothing for her. You won't want to. Then your relationship goes to shit. And then going after her and having sex with her is so unfulfilling and unrewarding that you just barely don't want to do it ever. And it knocks you sick. And this is so obvious. But like, it's like, if you just look at the term wanker, it's not a good thing, is it? You know what I mean? Be like, he's a wanker. It's not like a great thing to be called, is it? Tosser, tossing it off, jerk off, jerking off. It's not a good thing, as in it can directly have a disastrous effect on your life.
Yeah, you're not going to put
into oblivion.
You're not going to put it on your CV, are you?
Yeah, top wanker.
It's not going to get you that top job, is it?
I asked one of the lads, like, how do you, like, we were talking about this, one of my clients in a group chat, and he replied, I said, how do you feel after you like had a wank? And he's like, fucking disgusted with myself. And it's like, when you look at it, like, there's like that refractory period that you get after orgasm, when you're not sharing it with anyone, when you're not with anyone, when you've not got the feeling of the opposite sex with you, like, you probably would feel that because you're alone. Like, it's just not the same. Like,
yeah.
It's really weird.
Yeah. And I do think a lot of that starts with, well, it's all about how you live your life, but I think a lot of it starts with what you eat. And I think arguably it's underplayed as to the impact it actually has. I think we don't fully understand it, or it's such a big, complex system that it's very, very difficult for anybody to get a head around, let alone your average person. And I think, you know, general health terms, we normally say, what is it like? You know, your body composition is 80% your diet, 20% your training. And again, when you come down to the 80-20% rule in terms of good foods, bad foods, or foods that are less beneficial, I think it probably needs to be even more extreme than that. I think a lot of personal trainers are looking at, like, you know, it's all right, you can eat pizza and you can still be healthy, or you can eat ice creams and cakes and stuff, and as long as it fits your calories.
When you look at it, really.
And because we're simply looking at calories and nothing else, we're not actually thinking about the impact it has on overall health and lifestyle, especially, like, how do you then go and measure that over the course of 50, 60, 70, 80 years? You can't.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a study that does. And you know, I think if it only takes 7 days worth of eating junk food to change the physiology of your fucking brain, which, by the way, we spend 18 years developing through childhood, and it takes it's about 80% of our body's daily energy intake. It's so expensive. It's probably the most expensive piece of machinery or equipment you can have in your body, and we're abusing it like that. We're not looking after it, and it's your brain. And we're wondering why everyone's walking around feeling fucking depressed or anxious all the time now. And
you've got to look at our media. It was in the 70s or 80s that scientists were paid by the.
Oh yeah, do you remember when they said that cigarettes? Industry. Do you remember when cigarettes were good for you as well?
That's further back, that one.
Do you know what else is good for you these days as well, though?
An experimental injection.
Go and get your fucking experimental jab.
It's remarkable, isn't it? When you know, like, and you go back to what you said, 58% of deaths come from these big two things that are reversible, that are beatable by yourself. And we're promoting terrible food, terrible lifestyles, toxic things that we take in through the television, which are just fucking depressing. The news is depressing as shit. And now it's like, take the vaccine and save lives.
Literally, I think some of my health and lifestyle tips, one of them, simply just don't watch the news. Don't watch the news. Don't go on social media unless you're going to go and contribute and add something worthwhile. Like if you're going to be on there and be a consumer and just scroll and scroll and scroll, delete the apps, get rid of it. Not good for your mental health. Unless you're putting information out there, don't bother yourself. Leave it alone. And you know, like you mentioned there about those mismatched diseases, and that's 58%, coronary heart disease and cancer, two massive killers. How many people do we think actually suffer from one or more of those things? Like if you were looking at issues with the gut, like, or if you go to chronic stress, IBS, Crohn's disease, low back pain, flat feet, cavities with their teeth, how many people have issues there? How many have immobility through their posture?
Yeah, and look at people's lives, mate. Sat at a desk all day, go home, well, stay at home, continue to sit on a chair, doing fuck all, no exercise, no nothing. And people will demean and discredit us because, or try to, like we had talked about before, like in arguments that people can't win, they just try and discredit the person or the source who's coming out with it. And people are like, oh, it's easy for you. You work at the gym, blah, blah, blah. Or you're a gym freak or a health freak. So it's easy for you to say, like, yeah, but it's really important. We're not just trying to make anyone feel bad because they don't lift loads of weights 6 days a week. That's not the point. It's like,
you know, it's funny that you mentioned that you're a gym freak or a health freak. Imagine if you went around and went, oh, you're a
Netflix freak.
Fat freak.
You're a fat freak. You're a lazy freak. You're a lazy.
Just saying one of those things, just saying someone's fat is derogatory and offensive, but you actually living your lifestyle in a positive manner. I mean,
how dare you point out the obvious, that exercise and a solid and a sound diet where you're eating whole foods, sleeping 8 hours a night, not chronically stressed, got great relationships because you're not wanking yourself into depression, is a fucking good thing. Jesus Christ, man. How dare you point that out to me, which is solely obvious and is ignored by everyone, the government and fucking most people, you know. Like, we're so lucky that I'm lucky that I'm head coach at a gym with 180 members who are just, you know, mostly in the mindset of this is essential. Living a certain way is essential for a quality, happy, long life where you're a positive, what's the fucking word? You're a positive person in everybody's community and you add quality to people's lives. You're good for your family. You're a good role model for your kids.
You're a contributor.
Yeah,
you've got it right. You're not someone that just consumes and takes up resources. You consume and simply take up resources through, like, go back through time. You'd be killed off. You'd be removed. You'd be, you know.
Well, and you look at the, you know, obesity
from the tribe.
Obesity last year, even in the fake pandemic, even with no one going to hospital, still have 1 million admissions related to obesity. You know, and before that, the yearly burden on the NHS was something like 27 billion from obesity related illnesses. I hate calling it like illness as well, because really, like, you know, there might be a couple of outliers out there who are in the very, very, very small minority. But, you know, this is like, it's almost like an accident. It's almost, or it's something that needs to be, the blame needs to be put on the environment that the person's in, the person who's grown up with with overweight parents and overweight family members and overweight teachers and all these examples of what a human body should look like. And then just for it to be normal and accepted that that's the way to be. It's really sad. We don't have to live like this. We don't have to be this way. Like, you don't have to be depressed because you're overweight. You don't have to be that way. And I'm not being funny, but anyone who's like severely overweight and tells me that they've got absolutely zero mental health issues or doesn't think about it on a regular basis is lying. Because you're a ticking time bomb, and it's not going to end well. But like we're not condemning you, we're not demonizing you. We're saying that there is a way out of it, and it's just maybe working with someone, working on yourself, to make a start, to make a change. You may never be shreds. You may never be, back squatting this. You may never be running a sub 25K even, but you'll be the best version of yourself and the best person in your family, in your relationships, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Just do the things that humans have evolved to do, the things that we were designed to do. You know what I mean? Like, walk around, be active. Like hunter-gatherer tribes, females would walk around 9 kilometers a day, males 15 kilometers a day. We ain't even getting fucking close. Even compared to pre-industrial times, we're spending...
Even us, mate. Even us who are active.
Yeah.
We still don't, because we don't have to. You know what I mean? A drive to the gym.
This is it. So on average, we're using 300 to 500 calories less per day than pre-industrial times, which... You look at weight gain and the rise of obesity, you can blame sugar all you want, but it's not simply that. There's so many factors. But mate, I feel like I've had a really good rant this morning. I feel like I've got a lot off my chest. I feel like all I want to do is walk around and just fucking shake people. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? The amount of people that I see walking around wearing a mask, knowing that they've had 2 jabs, piling chips into the trolley, and I just...
Yeah, I put that up on a social media post the other week. It's like I was going around Asda and it was warm, hot Saturday. People just piling trolleys in with beer and pizza and all that. And, people should be able to have a good time at the weekend. But, and I think I put on there, the average body composition was Homer Simpson, including children.
This is it. I mean, when we talk about being fit, being healthy, like, we know that body composition is a contributor to all-cause mortality.
Yeah.
Just be around 20%. No one's asking you to have a 6-pack or an 8-pack or be completely, like tracing paper. Just 20%, good enough. Be around that. That's absolutely fine. You'll still look all right. You won't be like 6-pack abs popping out or anything like that, but that's a relative norm for a human being.
Imagine living your life worried that you're going to die of cancer or coronary heart disease. And then imagine not worrying about it anymore. How much happier would you be?
Well, I think this is the reason that people stay where they are. I don't think people are worried about it. You can't see it. If development of cancer cells was as obvious as fucking warts on your face, I guarantee about 80% of our population would be bricking it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you'd say 74%, wouldn't you? Because that's how many are obese. That's how many. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean,
have you ever seen, remember music videos? I've not fucking seen a music video in like 15 years, but there was one Nickelback, can't remember the song, but basically everyone's walking around with a timer above their head. And it's constantly going down. Some people have got years and decades, and some people have got 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Imagine if you could see that. Like, it's very much like what you said on your skin. But imagine if you had that number above your head, and every time you go in the Mackey's drive-through, it just drops off another 3 months. Or, every time your total intake for the week is a huge surplus of dirty, horrible calories that's just shit food, another 3 months drops off. But then every time you go to the gym, every time you drink a few liters of water, every time you read a book, every time you have a nice walk with a friend, it increases, or it stays just a little bit more or the same. Like, it's not hard, and I really feel for people who are stuck in this rut. There is a way out. There is a way out. There is a way to a better life. Yeah. Just, imagine if we spent that 300 million quid that we spent on scaring people about fucking respiratory illnesses that have been here for thousands of years, on the importance of diet, exercise, and mindfulness. I said that to someone the other week and they called me fucking alternative medicine. Like I'm doing Reiki on someone.
but that, I think that is the term for people that don't understand it. Like, I think it probably is a right term for them to use, because it's almost like magic to them. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's such a lost foreign concept that you could actually heal your body through your mind. And I think it's termed as introspective healing. Like, science has always told us that we can't influence our autonomic nervous system. So, certain parts of the body or brain that are shut off to us that we cannot impact on. I think Wim Hof has actually started to prove that we can. He's done an experiment where they injected him with a strain of E. coli, like essentially dead virus, or like what a proper vaccine normally is.
Yeah, an actual dead pathogen and not one made on a computer.
So they injected him with that, and the typical signs that they would see in 100% of people that were subjected to that kind of thing would be nausea, vomiting, like stomach upset, diarrhea, all that kind of stuff. He performed his breathing exercises. He concentrated and focused his mind internally as to what was going on. 0 symptoms. Not only that, but he also said, I can teach other people to do this. So he went away, took a group of people, I think it might have been 12 participants, something like that, taught them the breathing method, taught them the introspective visualization, healing, and then came back, subjected to the same experiment, injected with the E. coli, 0 incidents of illness.
Amazing. I did his course, mate. Did his 10-week course. It's fucking awesome. And he's not like some men's health cover model. He looks like your dad. Do you know what I mean? He's got pure dad bod. He's just a dude, but he's around 15 to 20% body fat. He's just a normal guy.
I think he's done a podcast with Tim Ferriss fairly recently where he's talking about healing the world, or kind of healing humanity through breathing techniques.
Well, yeah, it's definitely. I mean, even if it just even if you don't get that into it and you just find that it lowers your stress and calms you down, or it's a form of meditation, it's incredibly beneficial. It's something I still do today. Like, I think I did this 5 years ago. But people are just after the quick fix, the quick fast food, the easy option, the mask, the hand sanitizer, the vaccine that's not a vaccine. Funnily enough, I really wanted to bring this up. There's been a peer-reviewed research from the Lancet, very, very credible source of information, that the experimental vaccines reduce your chances of getting COVID by... Now, this is different. So there's what's called a relative risk reduction, which shows the big number, like everything involved. So your natural immunity, all that sort of stuff, and then the immunity that you'd get from a vaccine that's not a vaccine. The Lancet did some peer-reviewed research on this with the absolute risk reduction, far less impressive numbers. The absolute risk reduction, which is the difference between attack rates with and without a vaccine, considers the whole population. ARRs tend to be ignored because they give a much less impressive effect size than the RRS, the relative risk reduction. So here's the numbers. The ARR with the AstraZeneca vaccine is 1.3%. With the Moderna, 1.2%, the Johnson & Johnson, 1.2%, with the Gamaleya, 0.93%, and the Pfizer, 0.84%. So virtually no prevention. No prevention. There's nothing. What are we doing? Why are we doing this? I'll tell you what would prevent severe COVID symptoms: diet and exercise, mindfulness, lowering your body fat. I know that's alternate science, right-wing conspiracy theory, but it's fucking true. And it makes...
I just say, go back to early humanity where we were living for 60 to 80 years without medicine.
Yeah, without medicine. Yeah. But what were we doing? Walking, carrying, fighting, killing, cooking, from living off the land, shagging, not wanking, not ingesting loads of crap on the telly, not being told how to survive a pandemic from watching The Walking Dead, Contagion, fucking Outbreak, and all these other propaganda type movies that have just literally programmed us over the last 10, 20 years. Do you know what's really weird is when we got locked down, the number one film on Netflix to watch was Contagion, which is like some shit film from 2004.
I didn't watch it.
The vaccine will save us.
Never watched it. Do you know what? The more I think about this, the more I'm inclined to just fucking sell everything, go and live in a cave, and start foraging.
Yeah, I get it, mate. I'd love to live in a barn in the middle of fucking nowhere, surrounded by some wildlife that I can kill with a spear. I need to learn how to use one of them first.
Yeah,
don't have to use one in Tesco.
No, I'd like to.
I get looked like I'm the wild animal in Tesco anyway.
Yeah, that was a joke, by the way. Tesco supermarket. There are also other supermarkets available.
Yes,
I'm not
going to endorse any of them, but Tesco's the one that I grew up near. Hey, mad times. It's mad that we're the weirdo ones who believe that we've got an immune system. Like, look at science. Like for however long, like herd immunity disappeared, and we're saying all these obvious things, and we're talking on like a little bit of a lower level than the one we usually talk on in face to face, which is that we understand that this is all from the top down. Like, we are subjected to these behaviors, environments, situations, and this way of life because it's dictated to us by the government.
I know. This was another question that I asked. I've been asking a couple of people recently, but faced with a choice of multiple pathological liars, i.e. Boris Johnson, Dominic Cummings, Matt Hancock, whoever you want out of the UK government, who do you trust? The answer is fucking nobody. None of them. Trust yourself. Trust your own mind, your own heart, soul, your body. Trust the biological processes you have that have sustained humanity for thousands and thousands of years to carry you through it. That's where I say place your trust. Yeah. Place it in yourself.
Yeah, and I think that, like, if something doesn't make sense to you initially when you first hear it, if there's like a gut feeling where it's like, that's not right, explore that. Don't be dragged into virtue signaling out of it. Like,
so going back to, I've got a book on gut feeling. It's actually called Gut Feelings, and this goes back to, by eating crappy foods, you completely destroy the bacteria in your gut, which is also referred to as the second brain. So that gut feeling dissipates. So we are naturally removing that through the crappy foods that we eat. So we're losing that initial gut instinct that we do get when something ain't right. So that's why so many people are walking around absolutely mindless.
Isn't it weird how a lot of people who run gyms and stuff are of the same mindset? How weird's that?
Trust the health experts. That's what everyone's saying, isn't it? Hi guys, Alex and Tom here.
Yeah. That's insane. But because you might not have the credentials of a scientist. You're not an old guy on telly, some old bald fuck on telly who's got shares in vaccine sales and vaccine companies. I've not invested $1 million into pharmaceuticals, so he's not trustworthy. Are you mad? Like, what is it? The literal criminal organizations that are paying billions of pounds out in criminal damages.
For anyone that does want help or a balanced opinion, I have got shares in Big Pharma just because it's doing all right. So you can trust me when I tell you that it's bullshit. Stay away from it. Just go on sell. Get rid of them now.
Yeah, I mean, did you know that the dictionary of all this? We're gonna end on this. We've prattled on for quite a while here, and I think we've got through some really good stuff. This has been really good. It might be hard to listen to if your gut biome isn't of a certain level, but the dictionary have literally gone and changed the term, added the term anti-vaxxer and changed what it means.
What have they changed it to?
Bear with me.
What is it? What's it gone from and what's it gone to?
Let's have a look.
This is the thing that's happening with the whole woke brigade. We're actually having to change definitions. Like, it won't be long before we change.
What's that? What does that remind you of, pal?
We'll be changing the definition of male and female.
What is it? Well, yeah, well, it's coming. But it reminds you of 1984, where they rewrite what words mean and they have control of the language, perfect control of the language. When was this done? November the 4th, 2020. Anti-vax refused to people who...
was that just after the COVID vaccine was announced that it was available?
Yeah, but I think there's been a recent change to this, I think. Right. But let's have a look. Okay, cool. This is from Medical News Today. Refers to the people who disagree with the use of vaccines for a variety of reasons. For example, some view vaccines as an infringement on their human rights.
Well, it is an infringement if you're forcing it upon someone. Carry on.
Yeah. So I think I found it earlier, what they've changed it to. And they've changed it. Definition of anti-vaxxer, and this is from Merriam-Webster, 1882 dictionary. A person who opposes vaccination or laws that mandate vaccination.
Example. Yeah, see, that's my term of anti-vaxxer.
Yeah. As anti-vaxxers launch a campaign against a bill that would eliminate their ability to opt out of required shots, supporters of the proposal are delivering more than 21,000 petition signatures to the office of State Senator Ben Allen. First known use of anti-vaxxer is 2009.
I think if you're going to go down the route of forcing people to have medical treatment, you should also go down the route of forcing people to eat correctly and exercise.
That's the thing with me though, mate. Like, I am totally like live and let live. And the only reason that we've gone down this rabbit hole and this like scrutiny of people and how they live their life is because obviously trying to keep people alive is what it's all about. Trying to save the NHS is what it's all about. So the most effective, we've gone obviously for the most obvious thing, which is here's how you do it. If you want to save more people more effectively, quicker. So, but I'm live and let live, mate. If you want to do meth and it doesn't hurt me or my family or my friends, fucking go and do it. If you want to skydive, if you want to jump out of buildings with a parachute, if you want to do anything that some people would find dangerous or like, increase your chances of dying, I'm not asked. Go and fucking do it. Go and swallow swords that are on fire. I'm not asked. But now that we're at this point where we're at medical coercion, taking away people's human rights and livelihoods, pushing them to get this experimental vaccine that hasn't been approved, and the trials don't end for 2 years. Now I've got my back up about it. Now I'm pissed off about it. So I'm not an anti-vaxxer. My children have had their vaccinations, immunizations. I've obviously had mine. However,
funnily enough, I took my dog for his, although we decided not to go for one of the vaccinations because it's proven to result in multiple deaths in puppies. So why the fuck would I go and do that? You can make sensible choices about these things, and people need to realize that. Wait,
enough, you should say that because there's been 16,397 deaths reported in the EU, UK, and US combined. There's been 1.448 million adverse effects. This is from CDC, VAERS, MRHA Yellow Card, and the EMA.
And that's more
now, and the officials, those officials also estimate that only 1 to 10% of adverse reactions and deaths are reported. This is in the last 5 months. And that's more deaths than all vaccines in the last 20 years. So 5 months of deaths from this vaccine in the last 20 years of all of the traditional vaccines. Does this not send your spider senses off the hook? Does it not twig to like, and people are like, yeah, booked in from a second one in 2 weeks. That chick from the BBC, 43-year-old chick from the BBC, she died the other day, week after having the jab. And I know that I'm picking like anecdotal evidence here with this, but there's a lot more of them. There's a lot more sports stars, old sports people, people in the media, the public eye who've died, and it's just like, oh, they were, you know, whatever. It doesn't mean that they died from the jab. Mate, I got a message from someone the other day saying that they got their first jab and then miscarried. Young, healthy woman, lovely woman. It's early 30s, already got a baby.
Yeah.
The first jab, lost a baby. Like, and I know that that's anecdotal evidence, but it's being hidden from you. It's actually being censored. Facebook have also got like a division that's censoring information and also any comments that are negative and opposed to vaccine. They've got a division. I think it's called Barrier to Vaccination Division. And there's a manager who is actively doing it. And this isn't bullshit. This is real. There's Facebook whistleblowers coming out and saying this. Even Mark Zuckerberg himself said that, like, let's not trust the vaccine because, you know, gene therapy is, we don't know a lot about gene therapy and mRNA vaccines. Like, you can go and find that video on YouTube as well, Project Veritas. I'm going to put the source in here, link it like a proper podcast. But you're a conspiracy theorist, you're an anti-vaxxer, you're an alt medicine advocate. Fuck me. Get a grip.
That's the problem, though. As soon as you disagree with the popular opinion these days, you're wearing a tinfoil hat.
Isn't it weird as well? Like all these like woke social justice liberal warriors who are all for fucking unity and all that. They're all of their views and values align with big corporations. How weird is that? Like if you've got the same opinion as Coke and Ben and Jerry's and fucking Microsoft and Bill Gates, how are you a warrior against corruption when you are aligning yourself with the corrupt?
They're aligning themselves with the exact same corporations that have forever destroyed their chances of individualization. Like they're aligning themselves with those people who they've been persecuted by for years, if you believe what they claim. Like, oh, you won't give women high exec roles. Oh, you won't include these people in your boardrooms. But you know, you're in 100% agreement with them. Right.
I read this a couple of chapters from this book the other day, and it's talking about how did he go about this now? It's about heroism and conformism and conformists and non-conformists and why people are the way they are. So it talks about why people conform and why they don't conform, and it's for their own personal heroism. The conformist, let me talk about the non-conformist first. So the non-conformist will go with what they see, go with how they feel, and go on their own path. And they'll forge their own version of heroism through that, through being strong and telling the truth. Me and you. The conformist, hero, the conformist will instead virtue signal their conformism to show, because they're not outspoken, because they don't follow their true feelings. They will instead virtue signal that they're doing everything right and they're doing everything for everybody else to fit in. And that's how they're a hero. So that's when you see, I've had my COVID jab on Facebook with a ring around the picture.
Yeah.
Like that, people with the vaccine selfie and the fucking code and Pfizer and this date on it. Look at me, what I'm doing. Look at me, I'm doing it. I'm doing it for everyone. I'm going to stop the spread. No, actually, it doesn't stop transmission. That's bullshit. They test the efficacy. The vaccines are if you're coughing or sneezing less, which you can literally like hold. You could hold a sneeze in.
if you want to take any approach with that, you could argue it. You could possibly argue that it's a selfish approach to take. If you were to look into the issues related with antibody dependency, I think that's a whole other chapter to get into. If you were to look at some of the research that's done there or that's going on in that area.
Yeah, we've looked at this over the last few days, haven't we? Nobel Prize winner Luc Montagnier from France, he's a virologist, has come out and said that the vaccines are going to start. So ADE is basically the vaccine that's going to be widespread is going to begin to create variants and mutations in the virus.
And look at how many mutations there have been since the vaccination has actually been circulated.
Yorkshire variant.
Kent variant. Fucking Kent. Why does Kent? So India, a country of how many billion? 1.5 billion people, has its own one variant. Yet we've got fucking we're population of 70 million in the UK, and we're going after the Kent one, the Yorkshire one, the Bolton one. Probably go through the press
label the variant, the Indian variant, because of all the propaganda coming out of India at the minute, where they're using old pictures and fake videos and pictures from last May and using it as propaganda for this. Like it's just a campaign. And then when the Indian variant comes to Bolton, which has got like, you know, a lot of the population in Bolton are Asian, of, you know, Asian ethnicity. Like, oh, right, okay. It all makes sense now. That's why, you know, there's a breakout. And of course, they keep saying plans for June 21st are still going ahead. There's no reason why, you know, we're not going to open. All the numbers are fine at the minute. We'll see, won't we? We've got a couple of weeks left, but something's coming up. There'll be another, and like every week, there's another distraction. This week, it's Dominic Cummings. Next week, it'll be something else, and so on and so on and so on, to distract you from what's really going on. Well, we've been down several fucking rabbit holes today. So what did we talk about, mate? We talked about transgender athletes, fairness in sport.
Yeah.
Overweight people, how dangerous it is to be overweight, how likely you are to die from being overweight, the modern man, the Paleolithic man, the man who lived in a community with malnutrition, and where we're at right now. Wanking. And then we just finish with a bit of vaccination information that's current at the minute.
I feel like I've actually got a lot off my chest this morning, Tom. So
yeah, mate. It's a big chest. Big manly chest. Yeah. I mean, not in any way, shape or form toxic either, only positive. But yeah, we've talked about a lot there. Like, there's a lot of information. Everything we've said is real information. Everything we've said can be backed up with evidence, peer-reviewed evidence. So if you have got any complaints, or you don't agree with anything that was said, or you do agree but you don't like it because it hurt your feelings, reach out, comment.
Yeah.
So say something. You know, I've had people respond to me over things I've posted, like I said earlier, and always a positive conversation comes out of it with those who are open-minded. Yeah, it's good, mate. Thank you so much for coming on. I've really enjoyed this chat, mate. I think we've covered a lot of good, solid information there. Like, and I bet there's a lot of people who haven't even given this any thought. Yeah,
it's been a pleasure.
Mate. Thank you very much.
Got a lot off my chest, and for anyone that does want to double check me, go and start by looking at the research of Daniel Lieberman. Just start there.
Yeah, top stuff. Thanks for listening, guys. See you soon.